Now, this brings me to the hardest part while I was prepping for this, and Nick alluded to it, because this product is intended for existing Cisco security customers, and there really isn't an additional cost to use it if you already have their suite. So I've been really hard pressed trying to figure out how to implement feedback on competitive or similar type products from other vendors, because I'm not really sure how you compare with something that's you're already utilizing and is basically being bundled in. But Nick, you did allude to the fact that there are some others out there, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, sir, because I know personally that you also use another quote unquote platform play in Palo Alto. I'm going to ask you to tackle this question first, if you don't mind. What are the thoughts on similar products in the marketplace that compare or contrast with SecureX?
Oh, that is a tough one, Eric.
I'm sorry. I knew you were going to be mad at me for that.
No, we're good. We're good. You're going to have to give me a second to kind of think that through. Well, I mean, off the cuff here, there's a lot of stuff that Palo does. There's a lot of stuff that Cisco does. And from my perception, and whether it's right or wrong, it's obviously my perception, I don't see a huge amount of overlap, at least at the same level of effectiveness, if you will. For instance, Palo Alto does web filtering, web content filtering. We also have in our environment McAfee web filtering, because the Palo, while it's there and it's okay, it's not quite as robust as the McAfee. So from a Palo versus Cisco SecureX platform and tools, Palo has Wildfire, it has a Panorama for a dashboard. But I get different things from Panorama than I do from SecureX. So I think, I think there's room in enterprise for both Palo and for Secure and for Cisco from a security perspective. Beyond that, I'd have to put some thought into that, look over my stack, and kind of do an apples to apples comparison and see what the big differences would be. That's the best I got for you right now, Eric. Sorry.
No, that's great. Anyone else want to jump in?
So I've got some experience with some other products that are similar to this, Cortex by Palo. But more specifically, I want to talk about what Splunk has out there. And I think a lot of these platforms, the benefit that you get out of them depends so much on who you've chosen to provide your core security services. So Splunk, for instance, might play better when you have disparate solutions out there. But when you're already a Cisco shop, I think that Cisco has done a much tighter integration. So it really, the solutions you want to go to depend upon whether or not you can standardize on a single security vendor or not. And if you are able to standardize on a single security vendor, then I think Cisco by large has the most mature solution out there. And if you're not, then you might want to be looking at other solutions that are designed to play independently.
I appreciate that. And it keeps coming back to here. You've got, almost 65% of the people saying that it's very important to reduce the number of vendors that you have. There's a huge, obviously, debate, which will never be answered, between best of breed versus platform play. But obviously, everyone feels the need to reduce the number of vendors. So if you're already existing with Cisco security, I do believe that this is the type of product that's going to keep you there, as opposed to maybe looking elsewhere. Does that resonate with you?
That's exactly what I wanted to say, except you said it much more eloquently than I could.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Nick brought up also Panorama and Cortex, which I've been racking my brain about trying to how to figure out how to get this feedback, but also fairly talk about what else is out in the marketplace. And I was really thinking about Panorama. Anyone else out there have any experience with that as a monitoring type of tool? Now, I don't know if Panorama offers the same automated threat and response, so I might be doing SecureX a disservice. But does anyone else out there have any thoughts on Palo's Panorama as compared to this?
Well, I can't speak to that product, but what I can say from a big picture perspective is I think both of the points, the one point about if you are a Cisco shop, obviously you're going to have much better integration. And so you've got that. But at the end of the day, even if you're mostly a Cisco shop, you're still going to have other integrations, always going to have other integrations that are necessary, like Office 365, Mail, SharePoint, different things of that sort. And we found that, from an orchestration perspective, Products like Rapid7 really haven't worked with Splunk a lot, but I know that Splunk has some really good orchestration capabilities as well. And I think in the end of the day, when it's all said and done 5 years from now, and we look back, the success of this product is going to be largely in terms of monetary value. Now, certainly if you give something away, it can be successful as a dashboard, but as a monetary gain for Cisco, it's all going to boil down to how well they get their orchestration.
That's fantastic.
Got to have SOAR capabilities.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the acronym of the day, right? And I do know that Cisco would say that this actually does do SOAR, but even beyond that. And maybe it's just a simple matter of finding the way to increase the integration ecosystem to get it there. I am curious quickly.
Somebody also said the training as well. They really need to push. Someone was mentioning, and maybe it was you, getting employees trained on the product. So
it was Nick. Yep.
So they're using it.
Yep.
Hey,
And,
Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another little rabbit hole to go down real quick. So,
sure.
I don't want this to sound like a big Cisco commercial. I mean, I like what we're doing right now, but at the same time, while we're having this conversation, well, not literally, but I'm also applying the new Microsoft security stack against the Cisco security stack. So I'm looking to do a comparison to see if Cisco will be the future for my organization, because we're moving, to a cloud platform. We're moving to M365, and Microsoft does have some tools that are relatively interesting as well. So I just want to throw that out there to the audience that doing the apples to apples comparison of what Microsoft offers from a security perspective can be very interesting to apply that against your Cisco stack or your Palo stack or what have you. So by no means is Cisco the end all be all. However, it is good right now.
And I want to add to that is I agree with you that Microsoft has some really interesting products out there, and I think you have to really differentiate between who does best in which areas. So if you look at Microsoft's 365 Defender stuff, maybe it's really great at protection of your environment, but when it comes to detection of network anomalies and detection of events, they don't seem to play as nearly as mature a level as Cisco does. So I think you really do, in the end, you're going to end, like you said, you're going to end up with the best of breed no matter what. You try to standardize on as few vendors as possible, and then you try to split that up between what each vendor is good at. And I think that Microsoft, just due to its stance in the organization, is by its very nature going to be better at protecting information, whereas Cisco will always be better at detecting these types of events.
I agree, but I'd like to just say one thing. I think there's a bit of an arms race going on right now. And all these companies, Microsoft, Cisco, most especially, are engaging in bundling, in the extreme. And, I believe it's really to preserve their market share and to enhance their market share, more than the immediate competitiveness right now. And that's what I'm seeing. This is a trend across all products, not just these security products that I see right now in the industry.
This is fantastic. As I always keep saying, I don't want to be speaking. I want you to. So this is great. That's exactly what I was looking for. I switched over from the slide, go over to our live dashboard on data, and I only did because you were talking about Microsoft, Nick. And just a year or two ago, we would not see Microsoft in our security survey being this high. Up with best of breed names like Okta, and we saw SailPoint's earnings today. They're really reinventing themselves from an on-prem to a cloud name, so kudos to them. But yeah, Microsoft is a debate that in all of my end user interviews, people say, I'm not sure if they're good enough. I'm looking at them, and I think the jury's still out. They're certainly throwing a lot of money and R&D at it, but I'm just not so sure if anyone else is really willing to look at Microsoft as a first layer of security. Curious your guys' thoughts there, but from what I've been hearing more often than not is if you're going to go that approach, you're also going to want to layer in other aspects, and whether that be a Cisco or a Palo or a pure play like an Okta or a CrowdStrike, you're going to need to layer your defense.
I agree, and I would say that Microsoft, they haven't making a lot of inroads, but I think they're more of a threat to the companies that have historically performed email scanning, those type of things, antivirus providers, whereas Cisco is more of a network security shop that does antivirus scanning and such on the side. I think it's going to be very difficult for Microsoft to eat into evaluating the network traffic because they just don't have the on-site presence that is required that Cisco does have, that enables Cisco to have visibility that Microsoft will never have into the network.
That's an excellent point, and I'll just give you a very specific application of that. So who would know Microsoft Mail, Outlook Mail better than Microsoft? They host the Exchange servers, and certainly they're scanning and they're doing all their Office 365 installs. They have visibility into outbreaks and all of that. Yet, we, prior to us implementing Cisco Mail Security, we got tons of phishing emails, we got tons of malicious mail, and of course, layered security, you have your endpoint security and all that, but we don't want that garbage in our environment. And after we implemented Cisco Mail Security, we knocked out about 99% of that. We knocked out 90% of our mail in 99. So my thought process, when I sit back and I look and I think, okay, Microsoft has had access for going on about 10 years now to the analytic data from their Exchange mail, yet Cisco beats them hands down from a mail security perspective. So when you look at it from that perspective, it makes you wonder. But when you start looking at the cloud world, Microsoft's going to have even more visibility, and so that's where it's going to get quite interesting when people have the majority of their infrastructure in the cloud and it's on Azure. But the trust in Microsoft to this point is just not there based on true data that I look at, Cisco Mail Security versus Microsoft's tools.
Excellent feedback. I really appreciate it. I'm just realizing we're kind of approaching the amount of time, so I'm going to quickly go down to each one of you. Thank you again for your time and for being part of the ETR community, but we're also going to do last thoughts. Obviously, we can't touch upon everything, so I'm going to ask you, which aspect did we not touch upon? Do you think that would be most valuable to your peers out there that might be considering taking a look at SecureX or one of the competitors? And I'll just allow this as a chance to sign off. Clarence, why don't you kick us off?
So I'll make a final thought about Microsoft. I agree with everything that's been said, but you got to look at the trends lately and look at the progress that they've made, just in the past year. And I see them as a serious threat in the infrastructure and the security business, just based on their speed of progress.
I appreciate that, Clarence. And again, thank you for your time. Nicholas, any last thoughts for you before we sign off, sir?
So for us, we're in a very cost-sensitive environment, and for us, it's all about total cost of ownership and looking at what we've been paying for disparate solutions in year past versus what we're paying now for these all-inclusive Cisco solutions. It isn't even a comparison, and that's where I think we really have benefited from a deployment from a single vendor. It is lowering our total cost of ownership.
That's great feedback. And, a lot of interviews I've heard lately when I ask about who's a true partner to you, it's a name that I'm not going to lie, but 5, 7, 8 years ago, I didn't hear come up. But on the security side, I am hearing coming up more often. So when you think about TCO and longer term partners, it's nice to hear that. And Nick, signing off, sir, any last thoughts for you?
Yeah, I would say it's as you've identified here in this chart. I think it's important to collect data from a multitude of sources and never stop doing that. It's a constant evolution for a CISO or a CIO to look across your entire stack to do the apples to apples comparison. Is Cisco better than Microsoft? Does Microsoft do this better than they do? Does Mobile Iron do a better job than Intune, or does CrowdStrike do a better job than I think it's part of the executive responsibility in the organization to constantly push the limits of what we're doing today in this discussion and ensure that your organization is set up, whether it's best of breed or what have you. I think that makes us all, regardless of which decisions we make, it still puts us in a better position to defend against the bad actors who are out there.